This is Yvette Carnell from breakingbrown.com. And, I'm not going to take up too much of your time, but I just wanted to take a moment to discuss if you're a fan of Breaking Brown, or if you see me on Your Black World, we've been having this conversation for years now. This Barack Obama Black respectability conversation. And the thing is, a lot of people are just now coming around to the fact that Barack Obama just, he's not that into black people, or the standard that he holds for black people is very different than the standard that he holds for other communities. And it came to a head again because he was speaking at a poverty event in DC, I believe, at Georgetown. And somebody brought up criticism that Ta-Nehisi Coates had made of his black respectability politics. Well, Obama, who is the president of everyone except black people, goes to black universities, black churches, and all over, some sudden becomes the race speech president. So the president of everyone except black people gives race speech at Morehouse. And that was the title that I gave to a piece I wrote a while back about President Obama's speech at Morehouse. And I take that personally because I'm a historically black college grad. I'm a Howard grad. But when asked about the criticism that Ta-Nehisi Coates made, and let me just say, although I respect Ta-Nehisi Coates, it should be noted that this criticism that Coates is making is fairly recently. In 2011, Coates was basically saying in a blog post where he said, "My president is black." He said that I want an Obama T-shirt, I want an Obama shirt, as part of a zinger for people who were saying that Obama wasn't black. But here's the real issue. All of these people have come around kind of late on this issue, on Obama's black respectability politics. Obama started this stuff way back when he went to the black church and started wagging his finger about black men who aren't involved in the lives of their children. He has been doing this since the very beginning. He has been treating black people differently than other communities since the very beginning, and people just have not cared. People are more apt, or just people in the elite are just like Obama. So they're right in league with him. So this is where we are. So Obama, basically, when he's faced with the Coates criticism that he's been making, that he's been harder on the black community and other communities, he says something, and let's just break down how stupid what he says is, how wrong what he said is. Let's just do this breakdown real quick. Obama says, well, I won't apologize. I'll never apologize for making a speech like that. I won't do that. It's good for my daughters to make that speech, but I will also, in addition to making the speech and imploring black men to do better in the lives of their families, I will also do something else. I will also talk about the need the need for more funding. I will talk about the need for job training and all these things. And this brings to sight something that's very curious. It's almost as if President Obama has lost sight of the fact that he's the president of the United States and not the daddy, the national daddy to black men who don't have fathers. His job is not to father young black men. His job is to be president. And while you say, oh, I talk about both those things, well, you can only do something about one of those things. You can only do something about the fact that black people in this country are disenfranchised. You can only do something about the fact that black people have less access to capital than other communities. But this is the same president who closed down small business loan offices in a number of places, right? This is the same president who did that. But he's coming here now and say, well, I want to talk about all these things. Why are you talking to us about black men? The truth of the matter is you should talk about things that you can impact. You cannot impact, the lives of black men in terms of whether or not two people decide to stay together. Now, you can't impact that in terms of any sort of morality conversation. What you can do, however, is influence that by ensuring that black men have access to jobs, because stress is a key reason why a lot of couples break up. Economic stress eats away at relationships. So if you want to impact black people, if you want to impact how black couples or how black families, or you want to see more black nuclear families, then the best way to do that is to ensure that both people in that relationship have jobs, that people don't that men don't turn to selling drugs on the corner as their only option for taking care of their kids. So if you want to impact that, Mr. Obama, you can do that. But the second thing I'll say, in terms of what Obama did, in that same little nugget, he said something to the effect of, "Well, I had a little black boy come up to me and talk about not hating his father for owing, because his father was running away from $38,000 in child support." Well, that was, first of all, that was a very specific comment to come from a young black boy. But whatever, okay, I'll let's just say it happened. the thing is, it Obama acts as if or behaves as if, and I begin to feel that part of this antipathy is based on the feeling that he has towards his own father. And maybe he needs therapy. Maybe he needs to resolve that within himself. But if we're going to be honest about this conversation, let's admit that, Obama's mother sort of, left him with his grandparents and trotted him around Indonesia. If a black mother had done that, if Shaniqua or Tamika had made those similar choices, you would hear more about her and more about her bad choices and more about her. How often do we hear of black mothers leaving their kids to raise, so you leaving their grandparents to raise their kids or whatever? And black women are black single moms are castigated for doing that. But nobody ever mentions his white mom and the role she played. So I think all of this is kind of very indicative of. I'm trying to just think. It's indicative of something else. It's indicative of this sort of thing we saw a while back, of where this black mother was cheered for beating her son in the street while he was protesting in Baltimore. Well, you have to wonder, and somebody brought this up to me. You have to wonder whether or not a white mother would be cheered if her son, got drunk, as they often do, after a football game, or after the local college team won the local championship, and tore up the whole and started rioting for no reason. And if a white mother came out there and pulled her son off the street and started beating him, you would wonder whether or not everyone, the national media, from pundits to everyone, would be cheering. Yeah, that's what you should do. You should beat that boy, pull him off the street. There is this antipathy towards black people, and this antipathy that unfortunately is shared by the first black president, who is also a man who, he brought us my brother's keeper. Let's just break this down even further. He brought us my brother's keeper. Well, the problem with my brother's keeper is that it's charity. He brought up the My Brother's Keeper initiative, but it's charity. This is charity. The issues that black people, young black people, especially young black boys, are facing. This was policy. This was redlining, government redlining that created the ghettos. This was Bill Clinton's mass incarceration. This was all of these things that came together. This was us being left out of the New Deal. There was so many. The government is complicit in this. And for you to come along and say that these problems that were put in place by government can be fixed by the private sector, it's just ridiculous. And I think, it's something that we should all be outraged about. That is something that we should all be outraged about. But the truth of the matter is that Obama has let us know on more than one occasion that this guy's just not into us. This guy, this isn't about his daughters, which he brought up. This is good for my daughters. No, because this isn't good for your daughters. If and the implication being that if your daughters are going to marry black men, so what you have to do is work to make black men better. Well, you're not going to improve things on the ground by finger wagging and telling people to stay with their kids. And it was even more offensive at the Morehouse graduation, because these men had their one moment of achievement. These were men who were graduating from college, and you took that moment away from them to tell them, hey, stay with your mom. Have these men given you any indication that they aren't doing the right thing? They're here graduating from college. Isn't that the right thing? So you have to wonder how long we're going to accept this from people like Barack Obama. And you have to wonder if we're not listening to the wrong people, because this conversation just picked up in about 2012, 2013, when it was too late for black people to negotiate a different deal with Obama. So what has to happen is we have to start listening to people who see this thing coming. And we have black scholars, and we have people, and even I was talking about this, and after Barack Obama got elected. But we have to have people who are able to. We have to start listening to scholars who know what's going on. We can't start listening to people who come in late. And like I said, I love Coates, but the fact is, you came in. This is some 2012, 2013 stuff that you're on. We needed to be ahead of the curve. And in terms of the future of black politics, that's what has to happen. We have to start seeing the con game early and reacting to the con game instead of seeing it way late and saying to ourselves, oh, we should have done something about that. We got played. Yeah, we get played every time, but we get played because of what we don't see and because of who we do listen to. It was very apparent early on that Barack Obama was not that into black people in terms of what he had seen and what he had been exposed to. And so the problem is, why didn't we recognize it and adjust ourselves accordingly? So that's my take. And going forward, I think that's the position we need to hold.